Have you ever picked up an old, ordinary-looking coin, one that's been lying in a drawer for decades, and wondered, could this tiny piece of metal be worth a fortune? It sounds like something out of a dream, doesn't it? But what if I told you that there are whispers, real whispers, in the coin-collecting world about a certain 1942 Mercury dime that could be worth thousands, and in rare stories, even $1 million? Now before you shake your head or smile in disbelief, hear this, because behind that little silver coin lies a story of beauty, mystery, and hidden fortune. It's a story that begins over 80 years ago, in the heart of World War II, when every coin, every ounce of metal, and every symbol of freedom carried a deeper meaning. The 1942 Mercury dime isn't just another coin. It's one of the most beloved and iconic designs in U.S. history, a coin that collectors still call the Silver Whisper of Liberty. But this dime isn't famous just for its looks, it's famous for its secrets. Over the years, people have claimed that their 1942 dimes are incredibly rare. Some say they found one with strange markings, double dates, or minting errors so unique they could be worth life-changing amounts. And like every good legend, it's hard to separate the truth from the myth. But here's the thing, sometimes legends have roots in reality. Certain versions of the 1942 Mercury dime are extremely rare. Some feature one of the most famous minting mistakes in American coinage, the 1942 over 1941 overdate error, a small detail that turned an ordinary dime into a collector's treasure. But don't worry, we'll get to that soon. For now, imagine this. You're going through an old collection, maybe one you inherited, maybe just a dusty jar of coins that's been forgotten for years. Among the nickels and pennies, you spot a small, silver coin with a mysterious figure wearing a winged cap, almost like the Roman god Mercury. You notice the year, 1942, and a tiny letter, W, near the edge. Could it be one of those coins? Could this unassuming little dime actually be worth more than you ever imagined? That W might look like a mint mark, but here's the twist, it's not. It's actually the signature of Adolf A. Weinman, the legendary sculptor who designed the coin. And that detail alone begins to tell the story of how this small dime became one of the most beautiful, mysterious, and collectible coins in U.S. history. People often say, beauty fades, but legacy lasts. The Mercury dime proves that. Even after all these decades, it still captures hearts, not just for its silver shine, but for the story it carries. A story of art, war, and the dream of freedom in a time when the world was falling apart. But what's the truth behind the $1 million rumor? Is there really a version of the 1942 Mercury dime that can make someone rich overnight? Or is it just another viral story passed around the internet to keep treasure hunters hopeful? Well, before we reveal that truth, we need to travel back in time, back to the year 1916, when this coin was born from the mind of an artist who believed money should be more than metal. It should be meaningful. We'll uncover why the Mercury dime was created, how it got its name, and what makes its 1942 issue so significant in American history. So don't go anywhere, because this isn't just a story about a coin. It's a story about a nation, an artist, and a legend that continues to shine more than 80 years later. Coming up next, we'll dive into how the Mercury dime came to life, what that mysterious design really represents, and how one tiny mistake at the mint turned the 1942 issue into one of the most sought-after coins in American history. When we talk about the Mercury dime, we're not just talking about a coin. We're talking about a masterpiece, a symbol of American freedom, artistry, and endurance born in one of the most defining eras of the 20th century. To truly understand the 1942 version, we have to step back to the early 1900s, to a time when America was changing, and even its coins were part of that transformation. The story begins in 1916. The U.S. Mint wanted to replace the old barber designs that had been used on dimes, quarters, and half-dollars since the 1890s. People were calling for something more beautiful, more symbolic, something that reflected the spirit of a modern America stepping confidently into a new century. Enter Adolf A. Weinman, a brilliant sculptor and artist who believed that every coin should tell a story, not just about money, but about meaning. Weinman had already designed the famous Walking Liberty half-dollar, but the dime was his chance to create something intimate, small, yet powerful enough to carry emotion in its silver surface. When his design was revealed, it stunned the public. On the obverse, Weinman portrayed Liberty as a young woman wearing a winged cap, symbolizing freedom of thought. She wasn't meant to be the Roman god Mercury, but the resemblance was striking, and the nickname Mercury Dime quickly caught on. To this day, most people still call it that, though its real name is the Winged Liberty Head Dime. Look closely at the front of the coin. You'll notice the elegant contours of Liberty's face, the flowing curls of her hair, and that distinctive W near the edge. That letter isn't a mint mark. It's Weinmann's signature, a quiet mark of pride from an artist who gave America one of its most graceful coin designs. Turn the coin over, and the symbolism continues. On the reverse, Weinmann placed a fasces, an ancient Roman symbol made of rods bound together around an axe. It represents unity and strength, the idea that when the nation stands together, it cannot be broken. Beside it, an olive branch rests delicately, a universal symbol of peace. Together, they tell a simple yet powerful story. America's strength is balanced by its desire for peace. It's hard to believe that something so small could carry such deep meaning, but that's the beauty of the Mercury Dime. Every curve, every line, every symbol was intentional. Weinmann created it at a time when art and patriotism were inseparable, when even a dime could remind people of who they were and what they stood for. Fast forward to 1942, the world was at war once again. American soldiers were overseas, the economy was shifting, and silver coins like the Mercury Dime were still in everyday use. Holding one wasn't just about spending, it was about connection. People gave them in change, dropped them into payphones, or saved them as good luck charms for loved ones fighting abroad. The 1942 Mercury Dime became a silent witness to those times, a coin that passed through the hands of factory workers, soldiers' families, and children collecting change for war bonds. It wasn't just money, it was a piece of everyday life during an extraordinary moment in history. And despite being mass-produced, the design never lost its charm. In fact, collectors often call it one of the most beautiful coins ever minted in the United States. Its elegance, detail, and symbolism made it timeless. By 1942, the U.S. Mint produced these dimes in 3 locations: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, D; and San Francisco, S. Each carried the same proud design, but slight variations and minting differences would later play a big role in determining their rarity and value. And that's where the story gets interesting, because within those millions of dimes struck in 1942, a few extraordinary ones emerged. A few with strange markings, doubled numbers, or tiny minting errors that went unnoticed for years, until collectors started paying attention. But before we get to those rare treasures, it's important to understand why this coin meant so much to so many people. In 1942, America was fighting to preserve liberty and peace, the very ideals etched into the coin itself. The Mercury Dime became more than a design, it became a symbol of hope, a small reminder of what the nation was fighting for. So the next time you hold a 1942 Mercury Dime, take a closer look. You're not just holding silver, you're holding art, history, and meaning, all fused into one tiny masterpiece. But as beautiful as it is, beauty isn't the whole story. Because among those dimes, a few rare ones have hidden flaws, imperfections that turned them into treasures. Coming up next, we'll uncover how the 1942 dimes were made, where the errors occurred, and how one simple mistake created one of the most famous and valuable error coins in American history. When you hold a 1942 Mercury Dime in your hand, you're not just looking at an old silver coin, you're holding a piece of American artistry, history, and emotion cast in metal. It's small, yes, but every curve, every line, every symbol carries meaning deeper than its size could ever suggest. Let's start with the obverse, the front side, the side that has fascinated collectors for decades. At first glance, you might think it shows the Roman god Mercury, the messenger with winged feet. That's actually how the coin got its popular name, the Mercury Dime. But in truth, it's not Mercury at all. The figure you're looking at is Lady Liberty, wearing a Phrygian cap adorned with wings, a powerful symbol of freedom of thought. The design was created by Adolph A. Weinmann, one of America's most respected sculptors of the early 20th century. Weinmann wasn't just a coin designer. He was an artist who believed that every piece of U.S. currency should carry beauty, symbolism, and national pride. And he succeeded spectacularly. Look closely at the portrait. Liberty's profile is noble, youthful, and idealistic. Her gaze points toward the horizon, forward-looking, determined, yet graceful. The wings on her cap, finely detailed and elegantly lifted, represent freedom of thought, a reminder that liberty begins in the mind. Every strand of hair, every soft shadow of the cheek was meticulously sculpted by Weinmann to capture a sense of vitality, optimism, and intellectual spirit. This wasn't just a face, It was America's soul at a time of hope and transformation. Around the portrait, you'll find the word Liberty curved along the rim. Each letter stands proudly, yet harmoniously balanced, almost like it's guarding the nation's ideals. Just to the left, tucked carefully between Liberty's neck and the edge, are the designer's initials AW, Adolf Weinmann's subtle signature, a tiny mark that tells us this is not merely a mint product but a crafted work of art. Beneath Liberty's chin rests another phrase, "In God we trust." These words appeared on nearly all American coins by this era, but here, they feel almost poetic. Framed by Liberty's calm expression, they give the impression of faith blended with courage. And below all of this, the date, 1942, strikes its place in history, a year defined by war, uncertainty, and unity. The world was in turmoil, but coins like this continued to remind people of America's enduring strength and ideals. Now look closely, just beside the date, that tiny letter W mint mark. It tells you where your coin was minted, and in this case, it stands as a symbol of pride for collectors. The W mark, though less commonly seen on Mercury dimes, makes your coin immediately stand out, a rare conversation piece for any numismatist. Mint marks may be small, but in coin collecting, they can mean everything, changing a coin's value, rarity, and story entirely. But flip the coin over, and that's where the design truly transforms from art to symbolism. The reverse of the Mercury dime is one of the most powerful designs ever struck on a U.S. coin. At the center stands a fasces, a bundle of rods bound together with an axe blade protruding from the side. It's an ancient Roman symbol of unity and strength through collective power. Each rod alone is fragile, but bound together they become unbreakable, a perfect metaphor for America's unity during challenging times. Wrapped around the fasces is an olive branch, gracefully twined along its length. The olive branch has long represented peace, but here, combined with the fasces, it becomes a statement: peace through strength. It was a message that resonated deeply during the early 1940s, as the nation found itself drawn into World War II. Weinmann's design captured that balance: not aggression, not fear, but readiness and resolve wrapped in the hope for peace. At the top of the reverse, you'll see the words, United States of America, proudly encircling the design. Below it, one dime, simple and direct, yet elegant. And across the right side, in graceful lettering, runs the Latin motto, E pluribus unum, out of many, one. Few phrases could so perfectly capture the essence of both the design and the era. Many states, many people, one nation united. Take a closer look at the craftsmanship, the fine detailing of the rods, the texture of the olive leaves, the perfectly balanced axe blade. Even under magnification, the artistry is astonishing. For a coin so small, the level of precision is breathtaking. Every detail tells a story of skill and pride from an age when coins were truly miniature sculptures. Now, let's talk about the coin's composition, another element that adds to its appeal. The 1942 Mercury dime was struck in 90% silver and 10% copper, giving it both beauty and lasting value. That silver glow, soft yet radiant, catches the light in a way that nickel or clad coins simply can't. Even after decades, a well-preserved Mercury dime shines with a timeless elegance, as if it refuses to fade with the years. And then there's the edge, reeded, with fine grooves cut precisely around the rim. Like many silver coins of its era, this wasn't just for aesthetics. It served a purpose: to prevent dishonest clipping of precious metal from the sides. But beyond function, it adds a tactile charm, a familiar texture that collectors love to feel as they roll the coin between their fingers. The Mercury dime's design is often called one of the most beautiful in American history, and for good reason. It's artistic yet symbolic, patriotic yet universal. It doesn't just reflect one man or one event, it reflects the ideals of an entire nation: liberty, unity, peace, and strength. Even though millions were minted, each one feels personal, like a message from a time when design carried meaning and art was infused into everyday life. So, the next time you hold your 1942 W Mercury dime, take a moment to really see it. Not just the date, not just the shine, but the meaning hidden in its details. The wings on Liberty's cap whisper of freedom, the fasces stand firm in unity, and the olive branch stretches out with hope. It's more than a dime. It's a mirror of America, graceful, strong, and unbreakably free. But what happens when something goes wrong during minting? What if a small mistake, a double strike, a missing mark, or a worn die, gives your Mercury dime a whole new identity and potentially a whole new value? That's where the story gets even more fascinating. Because in the next part, we'll explore the minting errors and varieties that make certain 1942 Mercury dimes far more valuable than you'd ever expect. Stay tuned. Next part is where rarity and mystery begin. Now that we've uncovered the errors, varieties, and hidden quirks of the 1972 W. Kennedy half-dollar, it's time to face the big question that's been driving all the excitement. What is this coin really worth? And are those stories about million-dollar versions true, or just part of the legend? Let's start with how value in coin collecting actually works, because it's not just about rarity. It's about condition, demand, history, and presentation. When grading a coin like the 1972 W half-dollar, collectors look at every microscopic detail: the shine, the sharpness of the strike, the absence of scratches or wear, and even how the light dances across Kennedy's cheek and hair. These elements tell a story about the coin's journey, whether it sat untouched in a mint set or passed through thousands of hands over decades. Professional grading companies like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Company, use a scale from 1 to 70, known as the Sheldon scale. A grade of MS 60 means mint state, uncirculated but possibly with small marks. At MS 65, the coin shows strong luster and very few imperfections. And at MS 67 or higher, you're looking at near perfection, the kind of coin that turns heads at auctions. Now, here's where things get fascinating. A regular 1972 W, or Denver/Philadelphia equivalent, half-dollar in circulated condition is worth around face value, 50 cents. But in uncirculated mint state, it can reach $5 to $15, and in high grades like MS 66 or MS 67, collectors have paid hundreds of dollars. When you add a special error, such as the missing FG initials, a strong double die, or a dramatic off-center strike, that value climbs dramatically. Certified examples of the famous no FG variety have sold for $300 to $500, sometimes more if they have beautiful toning or eye appeal. And if you find one with multiple unique features, a clean strike, brilliant luster, and confirmed error, the price can easily top $1,000. So where does the million-dollar story come from? Well, the internet loves a good treasure tale. In reality, there has never been a verified 1972 Kennedy half-dollar, W, D, or otherwise, that sold for $1 million. Those viral claims often come from misinterpreted auction listings, clickbait headlines, or confusion with entirely different coins, such as early silver proofs, pattern strikes, or coins with extreme minting anomalies. Still, behind every rumor lies a bit of truth. Some Kennedy half-dollars really have sold for astonishing amounts, just not from 1972. For example, certain 1964 D silver proofs, special mint set varieties, and ultra-high-grade specimens from the late 1960s have crossed the $20,000 to $40,000 range at major auctions. Those coins prove that under the right circumstances, rarity, perfection, and demand, even a half-dollar can turn into a life-changing find. But here's what most people don't realize. Value in coin collecting isn't always about money. Sometimes, the emotional connection, the history, or the thrill of discovery means far more than the price tag. That's why so many collectors say, the real treasure is in the hunt. Still, if you want to know whether your 1972 W. Kennedy half-dollar could be valuable, here's what you should do. 1. Check for errors. Look closely under magnification for the missing FG, doubling, or striking anomalies. 2. Evaluate condition. The shinier and cleaner, the better. Coins with original luster and know wear always attract attention. 3. Get it graded. If your coin looks exceptional, consider professional grading. A slabbed, authenticated coin often sells for several times more than a raw one. 4. Watch the market. Coin values rise and fall with collector demand. Keeping an eye on auction trends can reveal when your coin's moment has come. In recent years, high-grade Kennedy half-dollars from the 1970s have grown in popularity. Collectors who once focused only on silver issues are now discovering the beauty and challenge of finding perfect clad composition examples. And because so many of these coins were handled roughly, truly pristine survivors are surprisingly scarce. So while your 1972 W half-dollar might not make you a millionaire, it can still be an exciting and meaningful discovery. A piece of history that connects you to a time when America was honoring a fallen leader and moving forward with hope. Because at the end of the day, value isn't just about dollars. It's about story, symbolism, and the tiny details that turn everyday coins into lasting legacies. But before we wrap up, there's one more layer to this story: the legacy of the Kennedy half-dollar itself. Why did it endure when other denominations faded from circulation? Why does it continue to capture hearts half a century later? That's what we'll explore next in part: legacy, mystery, and final thoughts. We'll bring everything together: the history, the rumors, the artistry, and the enduring power of this American icon. Stay tuned, the best part is yet to come. So here we are. We've explored the rumors, uncovered the truth, and journeyed through every curve and glimmer of the 1972 W. Kennedy half-dollar. But before we close the story, there's something much deeper to reflect on, something that makes this coin so much more than metal, mint marks, or market value. You see, the Kennedy half-dollar isn't just another piece of currency. It's a symbol, a memory frozen in time. Minted just months after one of America's darkest moments, this coin was born from a nation's grief and its determination to keep hope alive. When the design was first unveiled in 1964, people weren't thinking about profits or collecting. They were thinking about legacy, about carrying a leader's face in their pocket, about remembering what he stood for. And that emotion never really faded. Every strike of the Kennedy half-dollar since then carries a silent echo of that moment in history, an echo you can still feel when you hold one today. By 1972, the U.S. Mint had fully transitioned from silver to copper-nickel-clad coins, but the Kennedy half-dollar remained untouched in spirit. Even without its precious metal content, it carried something more valuable: meaning. It wasn't just about spending 50 cents, it was about holding a story. A story of loss, unity, and pride that lived on through generations. Collectors often say, "You don't choose a coin, the coin chooses you." And maybe that's true. Because every coin has a way of showing up when it's meant to. Maybe you found your 1972 W half-dollar in a drawer, a roll of change, or an old family collection. But what if it found you to remind you of something greater? To remind you that history doesn't only live in museums or textbooks, it lives in our hands, in the things we sometimes overlook. Now, about those million-dollar rumors. Yes, they might be exaggerated, but they've done something incredible. They've reignited curiosity. They've made millions of people around the world pick up a magnifying glass, dust off old coins, and start searching. And that's the real magic of stories like this. Because it's not always about finding a fortune. Sometimes, it's about finding wonder again. When you think about it, the 1972 W. Kennedy half-dollar isn't just a coin, it's a conversation between generations. Between those who remember where they were in 1963, and those who are just discovering that story today through a shiny coin pulled from circulation. So, the next time you see one, don't rush past it. Look closely. Notice the tiny initials below the eagle's tail feathers, the FG that might be missing, the delicate shine that might mean something special. Because maybe, just maybe, it's not just an old coin. Maybe it's a tiny time capsule, carrying 50 years of mystery, memory, and meaning. And even if it never makes you rich, remember this: coins like the 1972 W. Kennedy half-dollar carry a value that no price tag can define. They remind us that history can fit in the palm of your hand, and that every coin, no matter how ordinary, has a story waiting to be told. So keep your eyes open, your curiosity alive, and your passion for discovery burning. Because who knows, the next time you open your wallet or search through your change, the next incredible story might be staring right back at you. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey through mystery, history, and hidden value, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your fellow collectors. Because somewhere out there, another forgotten coin is waiting to be found. And maybe, it's the next million-dollar legend.